Come with me to this antique store that has a ton of boots. I ended up finding some wild stuff here, so let's see what I ended up grabbing. So let's go ahead and head in there right now. I kind of wandered through for a little bit until I made my way to this booth that had a wire rack in the middle of it that had a bunch of Mario figures here, kind of just in Ziploc bags, kind of randomly. Nothing too crazy here and nothing I had to grab, but after that, I noticed there were games on top, and that's kind of where I picked through these PS2 games. I ended up finding Future Tactics for $5, which did catch my eye. Then I ended up finding Shrek the Third, but I've already got that, so I didn't need to grab that. Looked through here for a little bit, and ultimately all I ended up grabbing was Future Tactics for the PlayStation 2, which isn't that bad. This was only $5, and I believe, yep, it is complete, which is totally awesome. I don't actually have this in my PS2 collection, so anytime I can find a game for $5, I'm gonna pick it up. That's currently how much it's worth, which is actually pretty decent to pick this up for $5. So first place, I found video games. I actually ended up grabbing something that was worth it, so that's pretty cool. But let's continue on because there's plenty of other booths to check out. So I kept going down the halls here, and I ended up spotting this 3D booth which had 3D printed stuff. I found this Pikachu duck, which I thought was pretty funny but a little too expensive. I found a Build-A-Bear Pikachu here, but again, these things were a little too expensive for me to grab, so I ended up leaving those behind. And then I went to this booth that usually has games here, but it looks like they really haven't restocked much since the last time I was here. So I kind of looked around, kind of hoping to see something that was new or that was video game related. I did end up spotting 2 games down here, but these games have been here for a while. So I continued on where I made my way to my buddy Nick's booth, where he moved it and has actually updated it and has an awesome selection right now, which was totally awesome. As you can see, there was a ton of Sega Genesis games. At the top, there were Super Nintendo games, a ton of NES games here that had some really good prices, as you could see here. So I kind of went through all the NES games for a little bit, which was totally awesome. And again, he's got a bunch of boxed ones to the left and a few PS3 games to the right here. I looked through all of these and he's got quite a nice selection here. There's a few Sega Saturn games there, and then a Sega CD, some Switch stuff, which is pretty cool. And down below that was even some PlayStation 2 games and PS1 games kind of chilling out there. Some Wii and the Nintendo DS games, and even some consoles, and these consoles were actually pretty cheaply priced. So if you're in the area and you're looking for consoles, maybe stop by and check out Nick's booth. But I also was about to leave, and that's when I spotted this little Pikachu that caught my eye. It's the fat one, which is so funny. So I ended up grabbing that to support Nick as well. And I saw a few VHS tapes there on the rack, and ultimately I ended up getting all of these games here from his booth, which was absolutely awesome. There were some great prices. So of course, I visited my buddy Nick's booth and he had a bunch of awesome prices, and so I was gonna support him no matter what and pick up some stuff, but I didn't expect to find all of this stuff. First off, you saw this little fat Pikachu for $10. This plush is gonna look great on my wall, and so I grabbed that. Then I ended up finding EverQuest Online Adventures Frontiers. This was only $4. It is missing the manual, but for $4, that was definitely well worth picking up. And then we've got a ton of NES games here, and he had a ton at his booth. So I went ahead and grabbed some of those here. I ended up grabbing Super Mario Bros. 3 there. I ended up grabbing Days of Thunder, Metal Gear, The Goonies 2, and even Yoshi's Cookie. And I was talking to him a little bit after the fact, and he said he just didn't have time to clean these, so he just put them out pretty cheap. And so I knew after looking they would need to be cleaned, but it said on the sticker that they hadn't been cleaned. So for those prices, this was absolutely worth it. Grabbing another PS2 game that I don't have in my collection as well for $4. Again, a no-brainer. And this little derpy fat Pikachu is going to sit somewhere on the shelf, so I'm definitely glad that I ended up picking all of these games up from him. It was definitely well worth it. But that's not the last booth in this vending kind of antique mall, so let's go back there and see what else we can find. So of course I continued on where I found an amiibo here and this Pikachu plush at the top. I wandered a little bit more until I made my way to this booth, which has had video games before, but usually they're overpriced, but this time that was not necessarily the case, which is totally awesome. First thing I ended up finding was Guitar Hero 3 for the PS3 for only $5. And then I kind of kept looking around in this booth, and I ended up spotting this Tomb Raider 3 here for absolutely $7. This thing looks insane, complete in the box, so I ended up grabbing that. And right off here, kind of towards the right, was just a bunch of empty loose discs here. And they were all either $5 a piece or 5 for 20. So, of course, you knew I had to go ahead and dig through this to see if there was anything I had to find. And wow, was I shocked by some of these crazy games that I ended up finding in here. Now, I'm not going to tell you quite yet what all I picked up, but as you can see, I've already shown some really good games here, so keep that in mind there. But I was completely shocked when I ended up finding all of this here, and you can see I picked up Minecraft, I picked up Deadpool here, then I picked up Legacy of Kain, a copy of Xenosaga, and last but not least, Soul Nomad, and as well as that Guitar Hero 3 and Tomb Raider, all in one booth. And then I was kind of done here. There was one more row, and I spotted The Legend of Zelda for the NES, the gold cartridge back in the back here for $20. So, of course, when I saw that, I had to grab that. But these two booths ended up being absolutely crazy. Before we get into all those loose disc games, Legend of Zelda for the NES, they wanted $20 for it. Right now, that's what it's going for. So this was definitely well worth grabbing there. And then I ended up spotting a bunch of games at that other booth. Starting off, Guitar Hero 3, complete in the box for $5. That's how much it's going for right there. And then I ended up finding Tomb Raider, which was just absolutely crazy. This is Tomb Raider 3. Sorry, I said Tomb Raider. I meant Tomb Raider 3. This box art right here just looks insane, and you can even open it up, and there's more in it. Just crazy to me, but for $7, I know this is a big box PC game, and I'm never going to actually probably play it, but I will display this somewhere up there on the shelves, probably, because just seeing this, I was like, I've got to get that for $7. It was a no-brainer. But the craziest thing ended up being all of these loose discs. We're going to talk about it. Like I said, this was $5 for each disc that was loose, or $4 if you bought 5 of them. So I bought 5 and these were $20. I'm going to put all the prices there and you're going to be surprised. First off, we ended up getting Soul Nomad for the PlayStation 2. Then we've got Xenosaga. Oh my goodness, I said that terribly. Xenosaga. Forgive me for that pronunciation for the PS2. And last but not least for the PS2, we've got Legacy of Kain, Defiance. These games are crazy, but then it gets a little wild. Then I ended up getting Minecraft for the Xbox One. You saw that. Insane. And last but not least was this copy of Deadpool. All of 5 of these games were $20 loose. Absolutely crazy, because these were worth a ton, and that booth overall just had some crazy stuff and was definitely well worth stopping at. But what do you think? Was this antique stop worth it or not? I definitely think it was. I found some crazy stuff, and honestly, I've been to this one a bunch of times, and this has been one of the better hauls in the last probably 6 months. So finding all of this was crazy. Shout out to my buddy Nick. He's the one who runs the Tulsa NostalgiaCon / Tulsa Comic Con. So if you're in the area, you definitely got to check those out and check out his booth as well. And if you're in the area, check out all those other booths, because I found some crazy stuff. But enough about that. What do you think? Comment down below. Was this a good stop, or would you have passed on some of the stuff that I picked up? Let me know all about it down below in the comments But I've got to get out of here, so check that video out. I've got to do some cleaning. But I think the craziest thing for me, these loose discs for 20 bucks, I'm probably going to end up trading some of the ones that I already have, but that's just crazy to me. So, I'm stoked that I found all that stuff. But again, I've got to get out of here. So check that video out if you haven't already.